All right, this is the chapter review for chapter 15. We're talking about volumes here. And the number one on the chapter review, remember the volume of a cylinder is base times height. Same for all prisms. But for a cylinder, the base is always a circle. And the area of a circle is pi r squared. So I'm going to put pi r squared times height, where that's the area of the base. So you could put big B there, but you're going to have to find that out anyway. So volume equals pi r squared times height. This is for a cylinder. And what do we have? Well, we've got the pi is just pi. Radius here, it says 15 feet, but we know that's the diameter, so we have to cut that in half. So 7.5 is the radius. We have to square that and multiply by the height of 7. So we have to do 7.5 times 7.5, which is 56.25 times 7 is going to give us 393.75, but the directions say round to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to put 0.8 pi, and then that will be feet cubed. There we go. Number two, same type of problem. So we start with volume equals pi r squared times the height. And here we have pi, the radius is 2, times the height, which is 10. Well, 2 squared is 4, times 10 is going to give us 40 pi. And the units here are inches, and it's volume, so it's cubed. So our volume is 40 pi inches cubed. Number 3, same type of problem. Volume equals pi r squared times height. Here we have a radius of 3 yards, so 3 squared, and a height of 12, which this will give us 9 pi times 12, and 9 times 12 is 108 pi yards cubed is the volume there. I like these. All you're doing is putting down the right formula and then plugging it in. Volume equals pi r squared times the height. Pi, the radius here is 9, so 9 squared times 18 is the height. Well, 9 squared is 81, so we have 81 pi times 18. And 81 times 18 is obviously 1,458 pi. And that would be inches cubed, or cubic inches. Your choice. Number 5. Now on number 5, we are going to use the same formula. Volume equals pi r squared times the height. But they're giving us different values here. So for the volume, now they're giving us volume, that's 25. Pi is obviously pi. They give us the diameter of 3, which means the radius is 1.5, half of that. Still square it. And they don't give us the height, so obviously we're solving for h. Well, 1.5 times 1.5 is 2.25, so now I have 25 equals 2.25 pi times h. To get h by itself, I divide both sides by 2.25 pi. 2.25 pi. These cancel out. And that leaves me with the height is equal to 25 over 2.25 pi. Now I can divide 25 by 2.25, but it gives me like 11.1 repeating, okay, or something like that. But we can simplify this. So let's try to simplify it. If we multiply top and bottom by 100, we'll get rid of the decimal down here. Make that so it'll be 2500 over 225 pi. And now I can divide by 25 easily enough. 2,500 divided by 25 would obviously be 100. And 225 divided by 25 is 9. So about as simple as we can get it is 100 over 9 pi. And then we put the units on there. Remember, we were solving for height, so it's not going to be cubic. It's just inches. Number 6. And on number 6, we're solving, but we're looking for the radius this time. So we have volume equals pi r squared times the height. They give us the volume of 7,599 equals pi r squared times 20. So we're going to divide by, we're going to divide by 20 pi to get rid of 20 pi there. So we'll divide by 20 pi. And that's going to leave us with 7,599 over 20 pi equals r squared. So now what do we do? Well, we've got to take the square root of each side. So if I take the square root of each side, so square root, I end up with the radius is equal to the square root of 7,599 over 20 pi. And that would be meters, because it's just radius. Now that is an ugly answer. It's kind of dissatisfying to leave something so complicated like that, but it's not going to be simplified. If we did want to plug in 3.14 in for pi, we could actually get this a little closer. Obviously, with the use of a calculator, we would do that. I'm not going to ask for this one on the questions portion of this, and you will not have one that complicated on your quiz, obviously. Moving on to number 7. Now, in number 7, we're looking for the volume of a cone, which is very similar to the volume of a cylinder, except the volume of a cone equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. So we can plug in now. Volume equals 1/3 pi, and the radius here is 8. So 8 squared, and the height is 12. All right, so we've got 8 squared is 64, so I'm going to put that 64 pi, and 1/3 times 12 is 4. And now 4 times 64, 256 pi, and that would be meters cubed again, because we're back to volume. Number 8. On number 8, we've got the same kind of problem, except this time they give us the radius or the diameter, but that's no big deal. So 1/3 pi r squared times height. 1/3 pi. Now, if the diameter is 4, the radius is 2, so it's just 2 squared times, and the height is 10. So now I have 1/3 times 4 pi times 10, or 1/3 times 40 pi, which is just 40 pi over 3, which is not super nice, but it is the answer. 40 pi over 3, and that would be centimeters cubed is the volume we got for number 8. Number 9. this time we're looking for the height because they give us the volume. So volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. And this time the volume is 3,052, 1/3 pi, and the radius is 9 squared times the height. 3,052 equals 1/3 times 81 pi times the height. 1/3 of 81 is 27, or 81 divided by 3 is 27. So 3,052 equals 27 pi times the height. And now we just divide both sides by 27 pi. Those cancel out, leaving us with height. And the height equals 3,052 over 27 pi. Nothing goes into 3,052 and 27. That will be helpful here. And it will be just height. So it's just, for number 9, we're getting just inches. 3,052 over 27 pi inches. And then number 10 is a different kind of problem. So I'm going to, even though I have a little space right here, just scoot down. Number 10 is volume of a sphere. So for volume of a sphere, we have a different formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. 4/3 pi r cubed. And on number 10, the radius is 12. So we have volume equals 4/3 pi 12 cubed. Well, 12 times 12 is 144. Times 12 is 1728. So I have 4/3 times 1728 pi. Now remember, when I'm multiplying by 4/3, it's really multiplying by the 4 and dividing by the 3. Okay, multiplying by the 4, dividing by the 3. I'm going to divide by the 3 first because this is divisible by 3. And that'll give me 576. And I multiply that by 4 to get 2,304. So 2,304 pi is the volume. And that would be feet cubed, or the volume of that sphere. For number 11, we start with the same formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. But this time they give us the volume, 12,348 pi equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by pi. And I know we could probably do a little bit more there, but man, if I can just get rid of that pi out of there, it just makes this look nicer to me. So 12,348 equals 4/3 times r cubed. Well, now, remember, to get rid of this 4/3, I actually multiply both sides by 3/4. So now I have 3/4 times 12,348 equals, and then that'll cancel this out, leaving us just with r cubed. Multiply by 3, divide by 4, so 12,348 divided by 4 is 3,087, and then times 3, because I'm dividing by the 4, but I'm multiplying by the 3, and I get 9,261 equals equals radius cubed. And then if you take the cubed root, not the square root, but the cubed root of each of these, obviously the cubed root of r cubed is just r, or radius, and 9,261 is what you get when you do 21 times 21 times 21. So the cubed root of 9,261 is 21, and it will be inches. It was just a radius, so not cubed. 21 inches. These next problems are composite solids, which means they're made up of a couple of different shapes. So this first one, number 12, is just two different cones. So now we've got to do the volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared times height. We'll do that top one first, which will be 1/3 pi 6 squared times 12. And then 6 times 6 is 36. And 1/3 of 12 is 4. So we have 36 pi times 4, which equals 36 times 4 is 144. So 144 pi. That's the small one, meters cubed. And then the bottom one is still 1/3 pi r squared times height. 1/3 pi. The radius here is still 6, but this time the height is 18. Well, 6 squared is still 36, so 36 pi. And now 1/3 of 18 is 6. So 36 times 6 is 216. So 216 pi meters cubed. And when I add both of those together to get their total volume, then 216 pi plus 144 pi is, so 216 pi plus 144 pi equals 360 pi meters cubed. So a little bit longer of a problem, but not very difficult actually. Just looks impressive. Number 13. Here we've got a pyramid on top of a prism. It's like nothing to do with circles. But we should be able to do this. Well, remember the prism on the bottom is just base times height. So the volume of the prism is base times height. The base is a 6 times 6 square, so that'd be 36 times, and the height is 2, which would give us 72 feet cubed. The volume for the pyramid on top is 1/3 base times height. Now the base is still a 6 by 6, so it would be a 1/3 times 36, and the height here is 5. Well, 1/3 of 36 is 12, and 12 times 5 is 60 feet cubed. I add those two together. 72 plus 60 equals 132 feet cubed. So that was kind of a throwback to earlier this year, but similar to what we're doing is just that the base was not a circle. So the final answer for 13, 132 feet cubed. And then number 14 is a cylinder with a half of a sphere on top. So we'll do the volume of the cylinder, which is pi r squared times height, which would be pi 2 squared times 4, or 4 pi times 4, which is 16 pi. Okay, so that's the cylinder. For the sphere, it's a half a sphere. So instead of 4/3 pi r cubed, I'm going to put 1/2 times 4/3 times pi r cubed. See how all that's just multiplied together? And then we could just simplify the 1/2 and the 4/3, which would give us 4/6, which is the same as 2/3. So now we're at 2/3 pi r cubed. And some of you might have thought, well, if 4/3 pi r cubed is a whole sphere, then obviously half of that, or 2/3 pi r cubed, would be half of a sphere, which you were right. So now we have 2/3 times pi times, and the radius of that hemisphere is 2. So 2 cubed. Well, 2 cubed is 8, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So now we have 2/3 times 8 pi, which means we're multiplying by 2 and dividing by 3, which would give us 16 pi over 3 plus 16 pi from over here, okay? 16 pi over 3 plus 16 pi. Well, we need common denominator. This is really over 1. Multiply top and bottom by 3 here, and we get 16 pi over 3 plus, and 16 times 3 is 48 pi over 3. And now 48 and 16, 64 pi over 3. Remember, common denominator, don't add those. So 64 pi over 3, it is volume, so it is centimeters cubed. And wow, was I running out of room there, but I made it. So yay, small victories. Very nice. The last problems here are just telling whether these are, or they are similar. So for number 15, it tells us that these are similar solids. And so remember that if they're giving us the volume on 15, so we have to do the volume of the small one over the volume of the big one equals, so I'll just put volume 1 over volume 2, equals some dimension of the first one over some dimension of the same dimension of the second one, and we have to cube it, okay? So for 15, the volume of the big one, so I'm going to put that on the bottom, 4,608, 4,608, and we don't know the volume of the small one. I'll put that on top. The dimension that they give us is the height, so the height of the big one is 24. The height of the small one is 12. We do have to cube that. Now, it's in parentheses. I can simplify that before I do 12 times 12 times 12 and 24 times 24 times 24. Let's just simplify that first. 12 over 24 is the same as 1/2. So that's about to get a whole lot easier. Volume equals over 4,608 equals 1/2 cubed. 1/2 cubed is just 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1/8. So 4,608 equals 1/8. All right. Well, 1 times 4,608, obviously 4,608 equals 8V. If I take 4,608 divided by 8, I get V equals 576. 576. And this is volume, so it would be meters cubed. Now I'll write it again over here. 576 meters cubed is what I would get for the volume there. Number 16, much the same, except it's going surface area. Remember, with surface area, we don't cube it, we square it. So it would be surface area 1 over surface area 2 equals A over B, but this time we square it. They give us the surface area of the larger one again, so that'd be 154. And they give us the height again, so it would be 6 over 8 squared. I could simplify this again to get 3 over 4, which will make it a little easier. So I have S over 154 equals 3/4 squared. When I square that, I get 9 on the top and 16 on the bottom. S over 154. I could actually, no, I couldn't. So now 9 times 154, 1,386 equals 16S. And if I divide by 16, I don't get something super nice, but it will be, if we divide both sides by 16, we get S equals, and then this would be 86 and 10/16, 10 left over, so that would simplify to 5/8 and the units here would be yards squared. So 86 and 5/8 yards squared. Well, that's the review. Hopefully you did well going through there, followed along, wrote down the answers, and now you'll be able to go over and answer the questions for this, and then tomorrow take the test. There's a walkthrough for the test. I highly encourage you to watch that before you take the test.